Hello everybody and welcome to the 16th video in our series of videos on political developments in Ireland in the 20th century. This will be the final video on this topic for a while as we turn our attention to international relations in the 20th century from here on out. But last time we looked at Cumann na nGaedheal's successes, and in this video we will be looking at their challenges and failures that ultimately will lead to them being voted out of power. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes. So by the end of this presentation, you guys should know what the Army Mutiny was. You guys should know what happened with the Boundary Commission. And finally, you guys should know three things that led to Cumann na nGaedheal losing popularity. The first major threat to the Cumann na nGaedheal government was the Army Mutiny of 1924. With civil war over in 1923 and the re-establishment of law and order thanks to the Garda Síochána, court system and the public safety acts that we looked at last week, the government decided to try and bring normality to the country and try to save some money by reducing the Irish army by 40,000 soldiers. Many soldiers and officers were unhappy about this, and they also felt that Ireland wasn't moving fast enough towards a republic and were worried about Ireland's status within the British Union. So to prevent a military coup, the Minister of Home Affairs, Kevin O'Higgins, arrested some of the leaders who were trying to start a mutiny. Richard Mulcahy, who was the Minister for Defence at the time, was forced to resign also. This is an important step that ensured that Ireland didn't become a military dictatorship and that Ireland remained a democracy. But it was seen as a challenge to Cumann na nGaedheal and the idea that they weren't moving towards a republic quick enough certainly damaged their reputation. The next big challenge that Cumann na nGaedheal government faced was with the Boundary Commission. If you guys remember, one of the three big issues of the treaty negotiations was partition, and it was agreed that a Boundary Commission would be set up to redraw the boundary. This Boundary Commission met between 1924 and 1925, and nationalists had really hoped that the Boundary Commission would make Northern Ireland so small that it would be forced to join the South, that it would be unviable for it to continue with its own government. The Commission had a representative from the Free State of Ireland, Owen McNeill, who had started the Volunteers way back in 1913. So we've met Owen McNeill a few times. There was a representative for the North, Joseph Fisher, as you can see here. And finally, there was a representative of the British government, a South African judge known as Richard Feetham, Lord Richard Feetham. The Commission only proposed tiny changes to the border with the Free State, with the Free State actually losing some land to the north in the proposals. As you can see here, the bits that are black are lands that were in the Free State that were now going to be given to Northern Ireland, and the bits that are grey were the bits that Northern Ireland were going to give to the Free State. So Cosgrave complained to the British government, and it was decided that the boundary would stay as it was established in the Government of Ireland Act of 1920. This was the act that had introduced partition. So this decision left many Catholics in a state that discriminated against them. We will look at these consequences when we look at Northern Ireland at another time. However, for Cumann na nGaedheal, this debacle was seen as a massive failure and it really undermined their popularity. Another thing that ultimately led to Cumann na nGaedheal losing power was the rise of Eamon de Valera's new political party, Fianna Fáil. De Valera had remained a member of the anti-treaty Sinn Féin party, but in 1926 he left it because Sinn Féin continued their policy of abstention. They refused to acknowledge that the third Dáil was legitimate, so De Valera left and created Fianna Fáil. Cosgrave had introduced a new law that stated that every candidate who even stood for an election would have to swear that they would take the oath of allegiance when elected. So Dev and his Fianna Fáil party took this pledge, and when they entered government, they took the oath. Finally, in 1932, Fianna Fáil won a massive election victory, winning 72 seats compared to Cumann and 57 seats. Fianna Fáil would end up staying in power for the next 16 years until 1948. So the question is, what caused Cumann and who had brought stability and law and order to the country, to lose its popularity? Well, as we stated, the Boundary Commission lost them a lot of support, and if you couple that with the Army Mutiny of 1924, many thought they just weren't moving fast enough towards a republic. Another event that led to their defeat was the Wall Street crash of 1929. In 1929, the world economy collapsed. We will look at this in greater detail when we look at the international relations in the 20th century, but it really affected the Irish economy. This, along with pay cuts to teachers and Gardaí and cuts to the pension, made Cumann na Gael very unpopular. And finally, the rise of Fianna Fáil under the charismatic and legendary figure of De Valera led to Fianna Fáil becoming the most supported party in the country. So these 5 things taken together help explain why Cumann na Gael lost their popularity despite the achievements that we looked at last week. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So from this video, you guys should know what the Army Mutiny was from 1924. You guys should know what happened with the Boundary Commission and the effects that had on Cumann and Nail. And finally, you guys should know 3 things that led to Cumann and Nail losing their power, mainly the Army Mutiny, the Boundary Commission, the Wall Street crash, the pay cuts to teachers and Gardaí, the cut in the pension, and the rise of Fianna Fáil. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something useful from this video.